Welcome everyone to a look at the continuing development into the unbelievably competitive and crowded world of class-based arena shooters. We saw LawBreakers a number of months ago in closed alpha. It wasn't the Overwatch clone that everyone is keen to shout at seemingly every new FPS title, it was its own game with different priorities. This was a game with roots in classic arena shooters like Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament. You lived on your aim, not just on your ability to manage your ults. There were rough edges, partially resolved ideas and missing features. In other words, it was exactly what you should expect from an early alpha. So now we've moved from closed alpha to closed beta. A name change we must presume shows the intent of where the developers feel the game is at. And so it unfolds. This is a sizable, impressive step forward from the last alpha. Where we had 2 maps, we now have 4. Where we had 4 classes, we now have 7. With a further 2 visible in the UI, but not unlocked for use. The Qualitative Maps has taken a notable step forward. The previous maps now look like older versions of the same art style. The map station should probably be called out as the current high point. It's a location that still feels like an FPS map, rather than a real place, but has a sort of difference of layout and space and visual quality that makes it an enjoyable place to fight in. The original 4 classes, the Vanguard, the flying around one, the Enforcer, the COD-like soldier one, Titan, the tanky rocket launcher one, and Assassin, the grapple hook swordy one, we now have 3 additional classes. Gunslinger is a dual-wielding pistol class that doesn't play quite as you're expecting. The left and right pistols correspond to the left and right mouse buttons. The left is a fast-firing projectile burst, the right is a semi-sniper-like charge shot revolver. He also has a directional dash a la Unreal Tournament. He was a lot of fun, to be honest. I would imagine he'd be even more fun for people who could actually aim well. The sniper-like right-click was super satisfying to land shots over a distance. All in all, if you're confident with your aim, he was a really enjoyable choice. Juggernaut is like a shield-planting, sprinting robot with a shotgun, and he was arguably the weakest of the new classes. The shield, which was both opaque and couldn't be fired through, had its moments, but in a game with so much mobility and speed, you needed to use it as like a trap or escape tactic of some sort. The shotgun also didn't suit many areas of the maps. It had a short-range power, but it felt frustrating to use, I found. The Battle Medic is a battle medic, with a grenade launcher, burst pistol, healing drones to aid allies, and a hover pack for manoeuvrability. This new class is in a slightly bit of an odd spot too. The impact on the game was undeniable. The ability to instantly put 100 shields on an ally while they were healed often made the difference, and gave the team huge amounts of sustain. But the ease with which you could project that healing meant it was often the main occupation of the class. For what initially looks like a combat class that can also heal, it often played a lot like a normal support class. Further cementing this idea was the highly situational weapon loadout. A grenade launcher in a game with wide open low gravity areas where enemies are often in mid-air is a tough sell, especially as the primary weapon. Often, the weak-sounding burst pistol secondary was actually a better option. In the tighter nooks and crannies of flanking routes, the grenade launcher started to make more sense, especially when you used the hover pack to gain some extra elevation in the normal gravity areas. The main problem comes in the main low-gravity hubs, the big hit-scan team fights over central control points. If they want players to be combat first and support second, the battle medics are going to need some better, more adaptable weapons in their arsenal. I'd imagine something like an SMG, something in that regard. The original classes had some tweaks too. Notably, the Assassin received some more health, which led to protracted conversations over whether or not she was now overpowered. Although, to be honest, those original classes feel like with some continued balance tweaks they could be in a releasable spot. It was more some of the design choices for the new characters that seemed of more immediate need. On top of the new maps and classes, we have a much more fully formed UI and general appearance for the game. Main menus blast some actually quite good music, and we've had a small glimpse at how they might proceed with cosmetic unlockables. Currently you get a stash box whenever you level. It contains 4 items of varying rarity, and are refunded some in-game currency for any duplicates. It's all very familiar in its implementation. The skins themselves vary from the "hey, that looks quite good" to the "actually, what the hell?" From the rough edges, I'm taking this as the first pass at the system, but it does show some real promise. The subject of cosmetics leads us to talking about cost. As people may remember, originally LawBreakers was announced as a free-to-play title. However, during last year, it was announced that their intention had changed to it to be a pay-to-play title. The exact price hasn't been revealed, the only clarification being that it won't be a full $60 AAA sort of cost. At a guess, I'd imagine they might introduce the game at a sort of CSGO level sort of cost, to be supplemented by cosmetic microtransactions. There is a lot to favour about this model, particularly in a competitive environment when you want a fair level playing field. Keeping core characters and maps in everyone's hands is a huge plus. No one wants to see a fracturing of the player base. All this progress rolled into a much more involving and enjoyable beta weekend than the previous alpha tests. In fact, you might almost argue that this is the sort of state the game should have been in during its first public introduction. There's still some aspects of low grav movement that could use some work. Occasionally you get stuck slightly too high to pass through a doorway, and with no crouch to control your downwards movement, you have to actually point your crosshairs. It feels a bit clumsier than it should. The added classes give real depth to the action. I played for a number of hours across all the days the servers were online, and had the opportunity to sample the game against some talented opponents. And trust me when I say that aim and FPS talent is king in LawBreakers. Performance felt improved too. With everything set to high, my system dipped to about 70 FPS only during large firefights. I'd imagine I could see 3 figures if I had lowered the settings a bunch. But you can see my exact FPS in the top left of the screen. I'll also put my PC specs in the description below too. Despite all these steps forward, the devs, who were on hand and approachable for both positive and negative feedback, talked about how the game was still not in the state they were after. They were still hungry to improve and refine how LawBreakers plays. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about how you'd like to check out future closed beta events and see how the story of LawBreakers unfolds, well, you can sign up at lawbreakers.com. But would you believe I just so happen to have a few keys to give out to you fine video watching people? All you need to do to be eligible is leave a comment below telling me your thoughts on LawBreakers and why you'd like to take part in future events. Obviously bonus marks for making me laugh. I'll pick out a few answers and message you a Steam code. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any comments or questions, then feel free to drop them below. If you'd like to support the channel, then please consider tapping that subscribe button and thumbing the thumb up button. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at LCTRGames. There's a link in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Great shot! Almost as good as Keith.
Battery acquired. Battery charging.